Welcome back to another video. It's a bit of a stormy day here in Luperon. Kind of just been hunkered down, not doing a whole lot today. The storm has just rolled through here in the past hour or two, as you can see here, and got a little bit of rain. Not terrible though. I think it was last night I had run into town. There's a week-long celebration here, and it was very stormy, I'll tell you that. I got stuck in town. It started pouring down rain, so I ran back to the dinghy, and on the way in, you couldn't even see the boats in front of you. It was kind of fun though. And but now back on the boat. This week I've done several projects. I've reworked on my boom, where it attaches to this like aluminum coupler that goes onto the mast. As I was there, I think I was checking my ropes, I noticed that there's supposed to be 3 screws that hold it in. There was only one left. I guess the others had fallen out, and it kind of worked all the threads loose. So I just drilled 3 new holes, tapped those as well, put new bolts in. That is nice and strong again, and then added some new line for the reefing points. And before I had one line. It was very old and kind of weirdly set up. And I noticed there was a spot for a second line as well, because you have 2 reefs on your mainsail. So I went ahead and ran some lines there. They're not quite long enough, I think, to be used all the time, like permanently attached to the sail yet. But I went ahead and ran them when I had the boom apart, just so I could order some proper sized line. And we already have something to pull through the new line. So anyways, did that, and not a ton else, I don't think. I think I've just added a few little things here or there to the boat, and went on a motorcycle ride with a new friend I made in town. So good week so far. Not as productive as I should be, but that's all right. We have these weeks. And today what I'm thinking I need to work on is putting my sail, this here, I've folded it up finally. I need to fit it back here, and as goes with my boat and me, this storage closet gets pretty cluttered, so we need to do some organizing, and as well as the lazarettes. I have quite a bit of stuff I've collected over the past year or two, so I'm thinking we might try to make a pile of things we don't know, like things we don't need anymore, and maybe we can post them to the community WhatsApp here, kind of have a little garage sale. So that's a good rainy day project. I will set you aside while I get to cleaning. So I've got it cleared out enough to start, and the next project I'm considering tackling is replacing my autopilots with this brand new autopilot here. And my current one, I guess can't show you, got the cover on, but it's the gray wheel EV100, the Raymarine, and I've had it break 3 times now while sailing. It's left me stranded. So big, huge, amazing thank you to Reggie, who watches the videos. He saw that I broke my autopilot and it kept happening. He reached out and said I needed to find the best one I could for the boat that would last forever and could cross oceans. And this is the EV200 linear actuator, I believe that's right. You can see it, it extends here, a bigger computer, and then a position sensor for the rudder. And he sent over the funds for this. I believe it was just about $3,000 for just the actuator, the controller, and the sensor. And it would have been another $1,000 for the GPS puck and the screen, but thankfully I called Raymarine and I can use the same GPS and screen from the EV100. So like I said, again, big thank you to Reggie. This is an amazing upgrade. But yeah, it's going to be quite the complicated install. Thankfully I enjoy that kind of thing. So I've just been sitting here reading the manuals, seeing what parts I can use and can't use. The hardest part is going to be getting this mounted to the rudder stock as well as to the boat, because that's going to be apparently quite a bit of force that thing puts out. And then it looks kind of a little technical getting this rudder sensor aligned and all these little various pieces. So I'll show you what we're working with back here. So if we climb back on my bed of sails, you can see what we're working with. This is, I believe they call it the rudder post or something like that. The post maybe is this, but I don't know what this is called. But anyways, when you turn the wheel, this thing rotates this way. And the thought process is on the other side, there's this mounting spot. I need to make some sort of bracket that I can bolt in here, and then it has a hole here. It's strong enough for the linear actuator to attach to. We still got to measure it all out, but it's supposed to be 10 inches from the center out. I think that's just about right. And if we do that other side, and then I have this pretty strong spot here to mount the actual actuator to, and I think that should be good enough. So yeah, that would be there. And when it pushes out, that obviously rotates that piece. And then we got to find a spot for the sensor still, probably something here, and then the new computer. And I'm thinking we'll go ahead and leave the old computer in here and keep the old wheel unit as a backup since I didn't end up repairing it. Yeah, might as well since we already have the parts, and get everything plugged into the network and then clean up a little bit of this wiring. Kind of neglected that. Okay, we're going to start with the easiest part first, getting the actuator unit. Makes me sound smarter than I am. The control unit mounted on the wall here, and if the size difference tells you anything about how much stronger this one's going to be, I hope that's accurate. So I don't know what I'm saying. I'm going to stop acting like I do and go ahead and screw this into the wall here. So looking at the controller here, what we have, lots of options. This is a CTOC plug, which is like a data connector, and it goes to these blocks that I have on the boat, and it's kind of like a network. These are almost like Ethernet cables. You plug them in, they all talk together. The compass just plugs directly in here, gets power, so kind of like power over Ethernet. And then like my GPS, the chart plotter plugs in. They can all share data, being the same brand. Pretty stinking cool. And you can tell this one's a lot simpler. So some wiring that's gonna have to change. The power is all grouped in with all my electronics for navigation. I just have a breaker, I flip it, turns them on. This one draws quite a bit more. I think they say the max is about 15 amps. And so what I'm thinking is we'll run a power line directly to the 12 volts. So a dedicated cable will probably go through the wall into my battery bay right back there. And then it looks like this sleep connector, we can run a cable all the way into the control panel where like my lights are and things like that. And then we can have a dedicated on and off switch, more of a digital instead of the power running all the way. Kind of self-explanatory stuff, but then the rudder position sensor plugs in here, power input and motor output. So easy enough. That's on there nice and secure. And then by plugging in CTOC, we're already hooked in with the screen upstairs and the GPS puck. So now all we have to do is the power, well, pretty much everything else. Of course, you know, after a storm, we're gonna have a beautiful sunset here. Gotta take a little break from work, I guess. So it is the next morning now. I've spent the past hour or so. I got the little rudder position mount sensor on there, and then trying to figure out how to get the actuator on. I've got some ideas, so I've got my backpack full of parts here. Probably can't see that, but we got to go by the hardware store, see if they have anything helpful there, and then we'll come back and see if we can't start fabricating that mount plate. Back from the hardware store, and this is some spare aluminum I had from building the solar arch. The thought process is this goes on top the rudder steering thingamajig, then we'd have the rudder thing, and then we'd have this. If we can cut it to size, this would come here, and then this guy would be somewhere about here. The problem is though, the rudder quadrant has a nice little curve that comes out, which could interfere. It's going to be pretty thin here. So we're gonna try to go ahead and just drill this, see how much clearance we have. This is the only aluminum I have. They don't sell any in town. So, and then if we have to, we might be able to cut this off here, and maybe we can use this here to extend the hole, give a little more strength, you know, something like that. We'll figure it out. We gotta make do with what we got. Okay, so after an hour of trying to use the jigsaw to cut this piece, this is what I've got. And it's not pretty, it didn't say it would be. But the idea is, it mounts like this. This piece will sandwich in here with the bolts. And this is where the actuator pushes. They said there's going to be 800 pounds of pressure on this. So we'll see. The reason I put 2, make it a little bit stronger, but then also the threads didn't start till here. So I kind of had to. But just use some small bolts there. Like I said, it ain't pretty, but as long as it fits, that should work good enough. So we're going to climb back there in the dungeon and do a test fit. I think I kind of told you earlier, but I did mount the position sensor. Get that bolted on there, and then just 3D printed a spacer so that way they're the same height. But yeah, when the thing moves, this moves. Now we're going to try to mount this here, and it's a tight space in here, so sorry for the filming angle. Let's see. Great timing, the drill is dead, so I guess it's time for a lunch break. But this will go here, and then the actuator will run this way. It kind of looks like it's gonna work, actually. Huh, it'd be sweet. All right, while we're waiting for the drill to charge, I bought this at the hardware store, $90. It's only pesos, so it's like a couple dollars, if that. And I'm going to see if I can't install that here. The bilge pump automatic, I don't really have that set up since it has its own breaker switch anyways. Use a float switch, I didn't understand that. So, actually I do understand that, but I just decided not to use it. So I'm going to put this here where this hole is. And then the purpose of getting it like this is, this will be the sleep button for the autopilot. I'm losing my mind. So it's double-sided and they're separated from what I can tell. So I thought this would be cool because this is a kind of a digital, it's just a switch. It's not like turning on power for the autopilot. It's just closing the circuit. So once I can close the circuit, we'll run a wire back to the controller, and the other side I can run 12 volts through and use it to turn on the LED indicator. So if this works, then I can swap out these two as well, because that's the same thing. They're kind of set up and the indicator doesn't turn on. It's just a simple feature, but these are cheap enough. So we'll see if we can't get that set up. Okay, we got the new switch installed. Autopilot on. Like I said, one side of it's just 12 volts for the LED, and I don't have the other side wired up. Still gotta run the wire back to the control port. Pretty sweet though, and the battery's just about charged. So we'll get back to the cave. Get the bolts to come in through the top, and they stick up too tall where, oh shoot, they stick up too tall where it would hit this metal bar, which the rubber stopper is supposed to hit. So we're gonna have to try to find a way to either shorten them or get them over the top. I'm gonna try again. Not quite giving up yet. Boom. That's why we don't give up. Okay. Maybe. Boom. Sometimes things just work out. I am getting excited, man. Alright, there she is. Like I said, it ain't pretty, but if it works, then it works. So, still gotta crank this down, and this obviously, but I think this needs to be able to pivot. Actually, no, I think it can pivot on the device itself, so we'll crank that down tight. Yeah, I guess I don't see why. And the only problem is, though, I think this is gonna hit this bar. Let's test that. And the rudder's still jacked up down below the boat, so I can't actually rotate it all the way. So we're eventually gonna have to take all this off when we get hauled out. Fix it anyways. But yeah, you can see right there. That's no bueno. So I think we can put the rudder position on the whole other side. Keep the same screw holes. That should be okay. Well, that's going to wrap it up here for this week's video. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. A bit of a shorter video, but still a good week. And kind of had to cut you off on a cliffhanger. I was running to borrow a screwdriver from my buddy Rick, and then I was coming back and realized it was Tuesday. I need to get this video edited to put up in the morning. So we're going to get to working on the autopilot again next week's video. And a big shout out to all the Patreon subscribers, everyone for helping out with the adventure. And a big thanks again to Reggie for sending the autopilot out itself. That's going to be a huge upgrade once that's mounted on. Appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you in next week's video.